Hi, and welcome to our show, Dede Talks, the Art of Specialty Lenses. During our adventure, we will discover tips and tricks from some of the most talented and artistic contact lens professionals in the business, while introducing you to beautiful artwork in many different mediums, from paint, ink, photography, and even food. Stay with us as we paint a picture of how art and specialty lenses go hand in hand. Our special guest today is Dr. Tom Arnold. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a native Texan. I've been in practice now close to almost 40 years. I'm from Houston originally, and had my own practice since 1992, and always have been interested in specialty contact lenses. And it's just been a great profession to be involved in, with so many innovations, and very rewarding.
What do you feel is your most artistic talent, and how it helps you with specialty lenses?
Well, about the only thing that I'm good at probably is taking pictures. So I started that. I always loved art. I do love art, although I'm not a painter. But photography is something that I started utilizing, when I started fitting specialty contact lenses, especially. And I think it's turned into a bit of a hobby for me. So I guess photography. Well,
and I know you do some beautiful art. We see some of your photography on Odie's on Facebook quite often. So, and you tend to be quite an innovator in the business. What attributes do you feel like create a good scleral lens design?
That's what's fun about scleral lenses, is there's so much to work with there. I think, first of all, you have to get the diameter right. The overall diameter is critical to a good fit. I feel like if you don't have the right diameter, you really can spin your wheels and not get very far. I think, secondly, the studies that we've had over the last few years with profilometry and impression molding techniques have demonstrated to us, brought home the idea that the sclera is very irregular, asymmetric, not only in heights, but also angles. And so it's we become more aware of this, and maybe using more torque haptics, torque landing zones. Now a number of manufacturers have quad specific designs, and I think these are very, very helpful, because I think as you develop a specialty contact lens practice, then you get more and more difficult cases. And so as you get these really difficult cases who are very ectatic, you need the ability to really nail that landing appropriately. So.
And what pieces do you use to determine the diameter of the lens that you're going to use? What tips could you give to a new fitter?
Well, look at the horizontal visible iris diameter, obviously, but also the visible iris diameter, because again, late technology that we've had over the last few years has demonstrated that the visible cornea, or vertical visible iris diameter, is different than horizontally. Not only that, is the limbus tends to be higher vertically than horizontally. And so, a common issue we have is we have these spherical optical zones. They don't land at the same place, even though you look at a cornea and feel like, well, it's spherical. Well, it's really not. It's more like a limbus, or as some people said, it's hyperbolic paraboloid, like a Pringles potato chip. Right. So a number of designs have enabled us to have a different landing zone vertically versus horizontally. And so that helps with decentration issues and midday fogging issues. And then, of course, the latest technologies, which are very exciting, are completely freeform designs, which you use some instrumentation to map the sclera. And then the manufacturer makes a lens that contours that irregular sclera. So boy, that just is such a load off our back, rather than figuring out, lift it 100 microns here and drop it 300 there and 400 over here, and trying to figure that out becomes complicated. So I think freeform designs are very exciting.
So what advice would you give to a new fitter about choosing a design to start?
That's very, very critical. I think the very first thing is know your demographics. Who are your patients? Who are your typical patients? Do you see a lot of keratoconus patients? Do you see a lot of post-RK and LASIK ectasia? Are you fitting a lot of grafts, penetrating keratoplasties? The age of your patients. Do you have a lot of really elderly patients where handling issues, care issues would be a problem? So I think know your patients, and then try to find lens designs to fit that. I think most people in most practices can get away with two designs, two different products of different overall diameters. Have what a medium, a mid-range scleral lens, say 15 to 17, and then if you have very ectatic patients with ectatic eyes, then a larger diameter. So pick two and know those two. Use the consultants involved with those laboratories. Get to know the design. It's not the old cliche of, it's not the golf clubs, it's the golfer. You don't need 6 different styles of clubs. You just need 2, maybe 3.
Right.
So know your population and do a little research about which lens designs may fit that population best.
Well, and I totally agree with you. I think 2 is probably the least amount you want to have in the office when it comes to scleral lens designs. Absolutely.
2 or 3. I mean, we in our office, we are privileged to work with a variety of labs. So we work with more, but some designs are similar, some designs are similar. And so try to find 2 or 3 or 4 maybe, but that are different, that fill different gaps.
And I know you work with a lot of students and a lot of new fitters. What's your favorite tip to give them when you very first start? What's the first thing you'll tell a new fitter?
Yeah, that's it. I would tell them not to get hung up on technology, not to feel like you need $200,000 worth of equipment to fit scleral lenses. Yeah, don't wait to start fitting. If you think of the history of especially scleral lenses, they reach back 100 years, and some of the innovators that are still with us, like Don Ezekiel in Australia and Ken Pullum, in England, Rentz Visser, Simone Visser. Some of these real pioneers have been fitting lenses with virtually very little instrumentation for a number of years. So instrumentation is great to do some of these really neat designs that we're talking about, but learn to be a good observer. Learn to be good with your slit lamp skills. Your evaluation skills, looking at fluorescein patterns, using lissamine green, listening to your patients. So, don't get hung up on technology at the expense of learning your craft.
Yeah. And I have to thank you, because one of the best tips I ever learned from you was the use of lissamine green to find toric haptics. I think that, or the need for toric haptics. So that was a big point in my fitting career where I learned a lot.
I never go to a meeting or talk to another practitioner, scleral lens expert, some of the mentors that you and I both know, without learning something. There's always some tip, there's always some pearl that we can benefit from. And that's the fun part about working with younger doctors and new fitters, is sharing that excitement and watching the light go out in their
watching
eyes,
them learn,
go on in their eyes. Yeah.
All right, now we want to shift gears a little bit. How do you feel that your love of photography has helped you create better lenses overall? And we're going to talk a little bit about your photography as well.
Sure. Well, I started doing photography, for specialty lenses when I really got involved heavily in scleral lenses. And I did it for my own edification, because you're in there with the patient, a lot of things going on. And so it documents it. And I learned to take pictures, or taught myself with some help of some great people like Ed Boschnick, who I owe a great deal of gratitude to down in Miami, who taught me a lot. Using those pictures from my own learning experience to go back and look at the case when I was trying to solve a problem or improve a fit. And then also they're invaluable communicating to the lab, because you can say, this is what it looks like. This is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And again, the lab consultants, I have the greatest respect for. That's the other thing, talking about encouraging new fitters and new tips, is rely on the labs. They have fit more lenses. They have seen more eyes than I ever will. So I really lean on them. And the more data you can give them is very, very important. They appreciate it. Give them the topography, give them the pictures, anything you can do, the history to improve fitting. So those two things, to teach yourself and to also communicate to the lab, is a real benefit of photography. Plus it's fun, and the patients appreciate it. I guess that's the last thing too, is patient education, because I do have a slow lap camera system that talks to the computer in my room. And so I can pull it up and show patients, this is why, and I understand, why you're feeling what you're feeling, and this is how I'm going to fix it.
That's fantastic. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of your art. I know you had, we have some pictures that you've taken. So the first one that we've seen is the one that you sent me with the scleral lens and on the inserter with some fluid on it. I thought that was a fantastic lens image to look at. And did you take that just freehand, or was that?
Yeah, freehand. Yeah, I think I had one of my externs just hold the lens up. I use, for pictures like that, Dede, I use a Canon handheld DSLR camera. The tip there is that to take pictures like the one we're seeing behind me and that picture you're talking about, you have to have a macro lens. Right. So you need to get a dedicated, camera lens. It's a macro, and that means it's 100 millimeter or more lens. And then the other part of that lens, just for a little technical talk, is you want a image ratio of 1:1. And what that means is that whatever you're imaging, whatever you're taking a picture of, is recorded in its same size. It's not reduced. And so you get a better image. So yeah, they just hold it up, and then you have to have proper lighting, because when you're very, very close to the eye, you need a lot of lighting, because it's a very small space. So if you can see, the image behind me, you can see the little white lights, and those are for a twin photo lamp, and that, or flash, and that flash mounts on the very end of the lens.
That's fantastic.
Of the camera lens, yeah. And so you need a macro lens, and you need a good flash system.
Good, perfect. Yeah. And I know that you've also taken some other photos, and we're going to put some of those up in just a few minutes. What I'd like for you to tell us about is a little bit about the lion that you took a picture of.
Oh, well, that was a great picture. Now that was with a different camera. That was with a fixed lens. That was a Panasonic camera, kind of a travel camera, but it had a Leica lens on it. Leica, if you know optics, is very highly regarded. Optical company out of Germany. And I've been to South Africa twice, speaking at conferences, and the payment or reward from our South African colleagues is to take us on a trip, a safari. And so we went to northern South Africa, close to Botswana. And it was about a 5-day trip, and you go out before daybreak in the dark, and drive around as the dawn comes up. And then again in the evening, you go out about sunset and go until dark, because that's when the animals are most active. And that particular line was at a game preserve of 185,000 acres.
Wow.
Like I said, I'm from Texas, so we're used to big ranches like the King Ranch, but 185,000 acres is a big place. And so the animals there in that acreage have never been hunted, and so they're not scared, and they're used to humans. So you can drive around in a Jeep and they totally ignore you. So that was taken at night, right from the Jeep, and with a little zoom lens. I got
with a zoom lens.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how close you got to that line, because I'm not sure I'd have gotten that close.
I mean, it was if you're sitting in a car, he was right down beside you. I could have jumped on his back. That's okay.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
I don't think I would do that. It's an interesting thing about that, is that lions, you see them in zoos, but if you're that close to them, you can't realize how big they are. They are massive. Their shoulders are wider than mine. They're just a massive animal. Wow. And my grandfather went to Africa a couple of times in the 70s. And so I've always been interested in Africa. It's a beautiful place. And to be a Maasai warrior, to gain your status as a true warrior in the Maasai culture, you have to sneak up on a lion and grab him and hold him by the tail while your friends kill him.
Oh, wow.
You better you better make sure they're good friends. But the base of the lion's tail is huge. I mean, it's enormous. They're not little kittens. They are massive, massive animals. Yeah.
That's just incredible.
I stayed in the Jeep. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I would have
stayed in the Jeep. Didn't make any noise. Yeah.
And the other image that we have is one, I believe was it Zimbabwe where you took that one with the tree and the sun, moon in the background?
No, that wasn't Zimbabwe. That was South Africa.
Was it?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah, that was sunset. That was dusk. It's just beautiful. The colors are amazing. You get out away from the city lights and the smog, and the whole Milky Way is there. It's really magical. And you hear the animals, in the bush. And
that's fantastic.
And I love art. I mean, I always love art. I love classical music. It's just art as a whole, whether you're in the Louvre or whatever museum you're in. I've seen the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, and it's just amazing because it allows you to see you see something different. You use some different path in your brain. Music does that, art does that, and so does a beautiful sunset.
Do you think that different path that you're looking through helps you kind of sculpt contact lenses, scleral lenses to the eye, or specialty lenses to the eye at times?
I think it goes back to being a good observer, so perhaps indirectly that what am I looking at? What am I seeing? I was a big follower of meditation and gurus back in the hippie days. And Shankara, who was a sage, very ancient sage, wrote a book called The Crest Jewel of Discrimination. And his whole thing was recognizing the real from the unreal. Okay, what is real, as opposed to what is unreal. And going back to what the retina specialist I work for told me about being a good observer is, it's important to try to, and it's difficult, to leave your prejudices at the door, to open your eyes and see like a child and see exactly what's in front of you and not prejudge. And it's difficult. I'm no better at it than anybody else, but I think being an observer, I ran a lot of marathons, in my time, and, just being out and open to, an environment that's changing and just taking it in, is a skill, to kind of quiet your inner thoughts and be open to whatever it is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Maybe it helps. I don't know.
All right, Tom, thank you so much for being with us. We really enjoyed having you on. Appreciate everything that you've done. And thanks for being a mentor to me and to many others out there in the industry.
It's a pleasure. I mean, this industry, this profession has been so kind to me. And so if I can, help pass that along, then it's a privilege.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for attending our broadcast today. And a special thanks goes out to ABB Optical for their support. Please stay tuned for future episodes of Dede Talks, where we sculpt together art and specialty contact lens fitting.